Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the office hours plus live stream. So we combined both of those together this week since there are a lot of announcements that happened this week. Just wanted to update the community on what all came out. Also, wanted to give a chance to ask questions or provide any feedback you had so far. So the big announcement is that Langflow 1.0 is out. There are tons of features. So we're going to cover a few today. And then we'll also talk about the cloud version and how you can access that, and also a few additional things. So, yeah, a lot of things that happen. And we thought who's going to be better than to have one of the co founders of Langflow with us. So, Rodrigo is with us today. Hello, Rodrigo.
Hello. Hi, everyone. A lot of people. We're trying to do this more informal and not very pretentious office hours over here, or alive, if you will. And try to cover a little bit of Langflow 1.0, the features, the announcements that came this week, and maybe take some of the questions that you all are going to have. So thanks everyone to join us, and it's really exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, yeah, at a high level, Rodrigo, I think just to cover, there was the announcement about 1.0, and then, it's just, tons of exciting features in there. About cloud announcement, maybe I'll quickly walk through how one could access Langflow. It's just the really nice thing I like is one could just sign up and get started in just maybe 20 seconds and start experimenting with Langflow, right? So it's a hosted version. One could start experimenting right away. And yeah, other than that is also the integration with LangSmith. So that's awesome. So a lot to cover. How about Rodrigo? We get started. Just maybe a few quick things about what 1.0 is and how maybe just playing around with it, how that looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very, very exciting to us. This week came with three huge announcements. Langflow 1.0, it's been a while that we've been talking about getting that together. We gave you like the preview so that everyone can see what that would start to become. But then finally, we made it in a very, very short period of time, and the entire team uh, gave their strengths and put together a huge amount of effort to make this happen as quick as we could, right? So we hope you're going to enjoy Langflow 1.0. And with Langflow 1.0 will come new feedback, will come new things that we want to hear from the community. And we're super, as always, open to get your opinion about it, right? About the features, about how it's looking. I hope to cover a little bit of this today, and then we can move to maybe some demo as well, show a little bit of it. Second point was the LangSmith integration, right? So now you can, everything that you're doing in LangFlow can be with a single string being passed, can be now monitored by LangSmith, and that is awesome, right? And then finally, and most importantly, we have LangFlow, DataStax LangFlow, which is the cloud version of LangFlow itself. Right. So after a long year of development of a project that is only open source and local, we finally have a hosted version of it by DataStax, and it's awesome and it works. You just enter it over there, try it, play with it. It's a preview version. It's completely free. Okay, so you can play with it. You can play with AstraDB for free as well, right? So try it out, give it a go, and let's see. Let us know what you think. You're on mute, Misbah.
Yeah, sorry. So just wanted to real quick mention it's a lot to cover. So We'll dive right in a minute. Just wanted to talk about some quick things about the platform. So if you've used Crowdcast before, great. If not, then there are a couple of things. You can send any message in the chat window on the right side. You can also ask questions in the Q&A section. We'll monitor both of those, and also if there are any polls, if we send out, we can have an interactive session. So yeah, it's going to be a bit casual today. It's of course it's Friday, and then also it's our office hours. So grab your tea, coffee, and let's get started, Rodrigo.
It's Brazilian coffee, by the way.
Oh wow, nice.
So I'm gonna share my screen, Misbah, and try to go through some of the features that we've been talking about. I'm gonna
Yeah,
just share my
let's do it.
entire screen. And if you come to docs.langflow.org, you're gonna see in the first part of the documentation, we wrote this quick review of what we wanted to address in Langflow 1.0. Right. So of course I'm not gonna read. Hope everyone is gonna take a look by themselves. But I'll try to go through like the main parts of this and why it matters, right? And this is a long time of conversations with the internal team, together with feedback from the community, and trying to address the main problems. The first one, I think, being that Langflow was not what we can call a Turing machine, right? It wasn't Turing complete, meaning we couldn't loop, we couldn't split, we could not do if and else or other logic operations, right? And that was one of the biggest additions, in my opinion, to Langflow 1.0. So same components, multiple outputs, right? Now Langflow accepts, allows you to create components that can split outputs and route those outputs to different directions, right? So you can imagine just with that, combined with composition, LangChain components and agents and tools, etc., with this kind of if-else logic, can be very, very powerful, right? So I think that would be one of the most important features in Langflow 1.0. You branch outputs, right? You create orchestrators of agents, etc., right? So imagine one big decizer component that is going to route through multiple outputs or multiple models or agents, etc., many decisions, right? This is a core piece, in my opinion, of language model real pipelines, because in real problems you need control. You don't want the agent to do everything. Sometimes you want an agent to do something, send a message over to another agent, or maybe if something happens, it goes that way. If something else happens, it's going to go this other route, right? So multiple outputs, I think that would be the number one feature for Langflow 1.0. And that comes together with an entirely new component code. Okay, so if I'm gonna actually come to my Langflow demo running on my screen. Now just put a component, any component over here in the screen, a chat input, for example. Now we have the code of the component over here, as always, right, in Python. But you can set and define outputs. If you can you see my screen, Misbah?
Yes.
So now you basically can set and define your inputs and outputs, right? And your outputs can be of n size. You decide, right? So I'm gonna assign that an output runs a specific function, and this function or method is going to be run once the component is built. Okay, so there is no more for those who use custom components. There is no more of that. Now it's the custom component. There is no more of the build function. Sorry. So now it's multiple outputs. Decide the number of outputs you want, the number of inputs you want, and you decide the functions that are going to run and how they're going to run. Right. So this is complete freedom to create anything Python within a visual framework. Right. And I hope that this is going to make things more simple, easy, and intuitive for everyone. Okay, and then Misbah, the second point that we're very happy with Langflow 1.0 is the fact that all of that also leads to a different paradigm for how data and information is passed, right? You can imagine flow style pipelines and composition style pipelines. Flow meaning data is going to be passed between across these components, right? So one component process data, sends the data to the next component. Composition meaning one component process data and sends the state to the other component, or an object to the other component, right? Maybe being the class of the first component itself, so that the next component can execute it later, right? So you can imagine data being processed. So some data over here going to be processed by the second component. Second component sends the information to this third component, and third component might work with composition, right? So composition meaning all of these little guys over here are components and they are tools. Okay, it runs maybe for recurrent some recurrent steps, and then it sends information over again, and it continues on the flow style, right? So you can have both worlds now in Langflow, composition and flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and perhaps on that, Rodrigo, there is a question saying that you know the one would like to set up an API and then from there go on to send a maybe instead of string message, send some file or so as an input and process the file through the nodes and get something back. Is that something possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'd say here is Langflow basically have different types of inputs and outputs now, and these types can be very easily recognized by the colors of the handles. Okay, these little circles over here are what we call handles. And right now, when you pass a message, right? Let me send anything over here and press play. I can inspect the message that I passed, and on this message, I'm going to see there is text, there's a sender name, there's a session ID, and there are files, right? So meaning this component didn't pass any file, of course, because it's not a file sender or anything, but the message object enables files to be passed through it, meaning playground now can, on the playground, I can send images, or even if I want the file component itself, right? Can send something. I can have it over here. I'm gonna grab anything on uh, my stuff. Don't know if this is going to read, but in any case, file path is here. The content of the file is there. I don't know if that answers the question, meaning the inputs and output types are more advanced and more complex right now. Meaning you can carry not only text, but files, images, and whatever suits you. And it's Python. It's accepted by any Python function. I think that's the
Hmm.
overall.
Yeah, no, perfect. So yeah, thanks, Mike. In case if you have a follow-up, feel free to drop that question in the
Okay.
comment.
So should I move on
Uh,
to the next
yeah,
feature,
let's
Misbah?
yeah, let's keep going.
All right. So basically, going back to the new features that we have, one of the most exciting of them is also memories, right? So I think we covered that on our last office hours, but I wanted to show this again over here. And basically, what you can have with Langflow right now is, let's suppose I'm going to create something very stupid here, just an input and an output. Right. So no model, there is no processing. Anything that I input is going to be passed to the output, right? So high, right? Nothing happened at all. So the model is just being echoing whatever I send on. Cool. But now everything that I send is stored in memory. Okay. So we have, remember this previous message I sent over there? It's on one of my memories, right? Hi by the user, hi by the machine, hello by the user, hello by the machine. And I have a complete history of every interaction, human machine, that happened. So what you can do is you can create chatbots now that can use these previous memories to do something useful. Right? So suppose I wanna take the memory and pass it over. Let me play this memory just to see what comes out. User, hi, hello, hello, da da da. I can pass this over to a prompt, for example, and say history, right? Given the history, answer my question. And then I can have a variable called question and then answer for the model to answer it. And there you go. So I can pass my chat chat memory to one of the prompt variables and then take the input being fed to the prompt as well. And now I can maybe throw over here a language model and then you keep your usual pipeline, right? But basically when I run this prompt message that will go to the OpenAI will carry the history that I wanted it to carry, right? So memory is something that is becoming much more powerful and friendly inside Langflow. You have your session. I can even come over here and delete some of these, right? I say I don't want model to store these messages anymore, right? Or I can even say I didn't say hi. I said I hate you, right? Oops. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Error for some reason. This feature is not. Oh, I know why. It's because I'm using the dev version, not the main one. Use the main one. But there you go.
Okay,
And
perfect.
then that's it. Misbah, should we cover more features? We wanna any questions,
Yeah,
doubts?
actually, uh, there is a question as well. Also, on the previous one, maybe we can come back to it. If you could showcase, if if there's a file or something that accepts file that node, how the API looks like, right? So how it allows one to send a file over the API column. Maybe we can cover that in a little bit. The other question was, is it possible to iterate data rows and run flow for each entry, like list of questions, so from a CSV tables, and have answers in form of data?
That's a very good question. Yeah. So this is hard. It's not easy, but it's already possible, right? With Langflow. So if you wanna iterate with data over here, there are two main ways I'd say give it a chance, right? Number one would be you're gonna create a component with a for loop inside of it. That would be number one. So let's say I have a file loader, right? This guy is, for instance, going to load CSV file. Let's see if I have anything. Maybe I do. Maybe not. All right. Data.csv. Okay, this guy is going to load it. And the data that comes out of this should be passed over to a component that will loop through the rows, right? And now we don't have this component pre-built, but we can easily create one. So custom component, let's say I want to use, I don't know, pandas for this, right? I can literally come here and import pandas as PD. My function is basically going to take the data and it will create a for loop. So from pd.read CSV, da da da, and you're gonna use your code over here to define whatever is it you want. And now you're gonna create your inputs over here that are going to be the file input and so on. And then you can loop inside a component. But that's not very fun, right? Okay, you can do it, but you can do it in a code way. There is another way, right? It's experimental, right? So if you come down to experimental, there's something called prototypes, and these are the super new and cool, but also very weird, maybe unstable features, right? So you try it out, and the idea here would be using the notify and listen, right? This is something that Gabriel came together with, and we were discussing what it means for Langflow. Notify and listen are components that allow for loop to happen within the platform, because what the notify is doing is basically taking any data and it's sending to another component Wi-Fi, right? Wireless mode. Okay, so let's say I have some data over here. I'm gonna pass a key name. Let's say my key, and this key is going to be received by this component. So whatever this guy spits out is going to come inside of this listen component. So I can play it and receive the output on the listen, which means if this one is in the end of a loop, in the end of a sequence of components, you can imagine how you can create all sorts of creative loops with this. So notify the last data, the last piece of data in your flow, and listen in the beginning for another flow or with some conditionals over here. Using these two components, you can basically iterate through lists, through tables, or whatever, right? But answering the question, not natively, you can try, you can do it if you want to explore a little bit further.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Rodrigo. Yeah, let's carry with the exciting features.
Okay, cool. And then more features like overall, giving overall control in terms of how you can, what you can do with your components and the pipeline in general. One of them is the freeze uh, feature, which is much prettier in the dark mode. So freeze is basically doing, let's stop the component from running again. All right, let's say I loaded something from a vector store and I want to keep that component there, but I don't want it to load again. Or I loaded some data from a website. I parsed the website. I scraped something. I don't want to do that again and again and again. So first time I run it, then I freeze it and just stick with the last result, right? That's very useful for a lot of cases for avoid spending extra tokens and multiple different situations that you're gonna find in your way where you're gonna try to use the freeze feature. And then we have the output preview. I just showed this. From now on, every component that you run basically have a little eye on the side so that you can see what comes out, right? Super useful for inspection. My suggestion, don't do anything without understanding what comes out of your components. Understanding types in Langflow, especially now that we have these very clearly defined types, like the message type, the data type, okay, and text and models. Let me show another example here. We have OpenAI model spitting out text, but it also spits out a language model, meaning you can use the output of this model, or you can use the model that was built itself, maybe in an agent, right? Or maybe in another component that uses a language model. So you just have to build it once. So this is super powerful and useful, especially when you start to get more familiar and comfortable with using these different outputs. Okay. And then we have the custom endpoint name. If you come to your flow over here and you wanna set up an endpoint name now for your flow, you just give it a name, right? You don't need anymore to use the ID of this. This is useful as well because you get a lot of control over how one or more APIs you're creating are going to send information, right? So set up your endpoint name over here, and it's going to be accessed through the API once you run it, right? So the flow ID is going to be the name over there instead.
Actually, Rodrigo, while you're on the API page,
Yeah.
could you show the tweaks available, especially for the file that was one of the questions earlier, right? How does that look
Okay.
like?
Yeah, so basically, let me add a file component. Oh, I have one. Okay, let's just have the file component in my workspace, and let me add some file here. Let's say this data CSV. All right. API is going to have, I'm going to have some tweaks, and I have a path, right? So basically, I can, when I'm gonna export either my Python code, let's say I'm gonna use the Python code, right? We have the tweaks variable over here, and I can set each one of these variables inside a dictionary, right? So in the example here, if I let's say I'm gonna open up the tweaks. Look at this. So in the run CURL, there's another a better example. Tweaks is here, and the file component can be adjusted inside of this dictionary by opening up the tweaks inside of that. I can set up the path that comes inside of that field of the file component. All right, and that's how you set up every component's fields and variables. It's through the tweaks, right? And to see every one of them a bit more clearly, we have this this little table over here where you can inspect each one and change them in place here, right? Uh,
Perfect. Yeah, I think that that
yeah,
answers. Hopefully, that answers the question, Mike, about the API usage. Awesome. Yeah, let's keep going through the list, Rodrigo.
cool. All right. So getting back, and please forgive me if I'm just going through this very fast. Keep sending questions, and I'll just try to answer them as best as possible. So next one is going to be logs and monitoring, right? From now on, Langflow has two new features. One is going to be logs themselves, right? So every component sends information to the other one. What is being sent, what was received, by whom, and how did this information go? Is there an error, status, source, and target? All right. So you can monitor everything that's going on from now on. That's one. And second, you have complete integration with LangSmith, sorry. So come over here, check your LangChain API key, set up your LangChain project. And once you work with Langflow, just run some components, you're going to be able to see your output in LangSmith natively, right? So any component that you're running inside Langflow has already an inbuilt trace being run behind the scenes, right? So just explore it, try it out, and tell us what you feel about it.
Yeah, that's actually quite nice. Visualizing not just in Langflow, but also one could do that in LangSmith with the integration.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I think we have a couple more. And
Oh, wow.
number one, yeah. And then the other one, and this is super cool, is going to be multi-modal, right? So if I open a new chat here and try it out with GPT-4o or another multi-modal model. So let me run it over here. Oh my God. Oh, okay, my format, my bad. Let's try the dog again. And there you go, right? So you can send dogs now, cats. Be happy. All right. This what this means is it's not just image, right? What it means is much more. It's the entire Langflow structure behind the scenes worked with text only, and having images now means that in a very short period of time, you're gonna see other models coming together very easily, right? It means that Langflow will soon accept audio and video and any other type of data, really, because the components now natively accept this kind of transition, or our data structures accept this, right? And it was a big refactoring, a huge change that is now completely passed through. So image is just the first one, I'd say. Then we have, and then we have folders and the playground, right? If you haven't explored yet, the playground is exactly what you see over here. When you have uh, when you just have the chat input or output, you're gonna see exactly this screen here. But if you have like text inputs and text outputs, for example, you see these inputs and outputs on the sidebar as well. And these can be used to monitor too, right? Imagine you want to, depending on the situation, you want to send some fixed text to this box over here, right? And you don't want it to come to the chat for some reason. It's very, very useful for inspection, okay? So text input, text output, memories. You can create multiple memories to your model. So your chat input and output, they take as one of the fields the session ID, right? And you can, by default, the session ID is going to be the same as the flow ID. So if you pass nothing, it's just going to consider it's a default session ID. But if you want to create different session IDs and just come over here and put anything and you run it, you should see like another memory, right? And you can have unlimited amount of number of memories over here. So create multiple memories and imagine working with agents that send information to these different memories, right? Imagine having agents that store different information in different places and then also retrieve different informations, different pieces of information from different sources, right? This is very powerful and hopefully it can be used well with some creativity.
Great. Actually, on that, Rodrigo, the previous one, right, about files. So, what type of file could be sent right now? Wondering if there's some documentation, right, on what all could be sent.
Yes, okay. So let me open the file component. And we have, inside of this, we have just a second, text file types. If I'm gonna look inside the code itself to answer this question, right? But this is all going to the documentation very shortly. So text, if I come to file and I look at this, so these are the file types that are currently accepted by that component, right? And I'm gonna ping this on the screen on our chat here. One sec.
Perfect.
There you go. So these are the types that are currently accepted by the file component. And that doesn't mean this is what Langflow accepts. This means that this component, right, as we are using it right now, accept these files. Now, you want to create your own component that will accept something else. It's a couple lines of code. It's not a big deal, right? So you say, well, let me plug my favorite library here, or let me make a connection with unstructured IO or Growbit for PDFs or whatever you want, right? So just write your component. If you have a little bit of Python background, or even if you don't, I have a great GPT instance creating components for us. I'll try to make it public. So it's super easy to create your own component and make like get out of the basics with Langflow.
Yeah, actually, that was another question about how to build these custom components, right? So, Chat GPT, custom GPT probably was one of the source. Is there any sort of tool or a RAG component which helps kind of write this custom component code?
Yeah, we have a couple of them, right? But since we refactored the way that components are written, we're trying to make one that is going to be new and up to date, right? Because the entire structure of how inputs and outputs uh, changed right now with Langflow 1.0. So let's we can share whatever we have over here. My suggestion is to take a couple of examples. If you take the ones that are everything that is in Langflow on the sidebar is open to see the code, right? So if you take all of these, any one of these components, they were written using the new code structure. That means you can just use them as examples. feed them to your favorite chatbot and ask it to create a new one like that, but that does something else. Okay, I think you're gonna get like 80% of the way there. And feel free to use the Discord channel, and we'll try to answer and try to create the components that you wanna see in the sidebar. Right. The goal now is to be increasing the number of components that are going to be natively useful, especially like helpers, for example, combine text, filter data, merge data, parse data, split text, etc. And then increase the number of integration bundles, like the Notion integration bundle that we put together on Langflow 1.0 Preview, or an unstructured IO bundle, or take a Discord bundle, etc. Bundle would be a pack of components, right? And that's our goal right now, to put together all of these component packs out so that people can either download from the store or take from our sidebar over here and start using them.
Great. And maybe one last thing about file types or so. So you showed us how this chat can now accept multimodal inputs, right? So you showed image in there. What all is possible right now, and yeah, if there are new things, audio or video or so, how does that look like if one were to send that info?
I don't know if I get the question right, Misbah. So you want to know how?
Yeah, how and what is accepted in this chat window? So you showed one image, right? And it was some specific format, right?
Uh-huh.
So what all formats are accepted in here?
Oh yeah, so the formats for images are these ones. Let me paste them as well, right?
Nice.
But so far there is nothing apart from image, right? So multimodal right now is image only. Okay, if you want to use on the chat some different type of structure that is not image or text, that's to come, right? The rest can be passed through the file component, can be passed and converted into text, etc. But natively on the chat, it's just image for now.
Mhm. Yeah, and the good thing is, one could always take custom component Python block, right, and then kind of write whatever the logic is for a video or any other format, and then send that data over. So there's always that flexibility using custom components. Great. Yeah, Rodrigo, back to you on the list of features.
Okay, I think we're done actually. I don't know if we have many more to say, and I think that people will be tired of hearing me speaking about everything. So I think what I'll do is I'll just try to conclude with what we want from this 1.0, right? And I think the idea is overall to add control to Langflow, right? We want language models to be able to create real applications, and we want these applications to be completely monitored, easy and interactively built. Okay, and these models, they sort of need an interface for the human to validate and experiment and prototype really fast. The way that we do that on code works, but it's still very slow, right? And we're trying to make Langflow an interface to solve that and become hopefully the number one piece of software for people who are enthusiasts about AI and want to start building something very powerful very quickly, right? We've been super happy to see how the community is growing in the last couple of months. And Langflow Ripple is basically getting now almost 20,000 stars, and this is unbelievable, right? We are super happy with that. We see a lot of feedback on Discord. We're taking that feedback. Sometimes we're hiding from the community over there, or we're missing from the community over there just because we were super busy on this 1.0. But we're back there. We are trying to get your feedback, and literally just ping us. If we don't answer what you need, feel free to poke us again, and we'll be there trying to add and prioritize the features that the community is asking. Our goal here is to solve for the main problems that you all see every day on the real world case applications, not only the playground or the interface, but make it in the end become an entire, almost an IDE, right? How can I create? How can I learn, create, prototype, and then deploy everything that I've been playing with, right? So I think that's the final goal here, Misbah.
Awesome. Well, actually, that was quite a lot. So, folks, there's always the video available. It's recorded. We'll have that posted on YouTube. And there are a couple of things that we'll cover. Actually, Rodrigo, before that, maybe a few quick questions. One question was, with the latest release, how does it look like to build a multi-agent setup or flow? Does it require multiple flows, or one could do it within one flow? How to go about that?
Yeah, so you can already create multi-agents in a single flow, right? The we for safety and because after 1.0 we want everything to be more stable, right? So what we did is we threw agents still on the experimental tabs. Take a look, experiment, especially with the tool calling agent, right? Check that one out, and then there is something called the flow as a tool, and this is where I think the meat is going to come, right? Flow as a tool is basically create your flow, create a pipeline, and then you're going to say, okay, I want to see this pipeline as a tool to another agent. And the power of this is basically unstoppable, right? It's whatever you want, literally now, and we already have that over there. Experimental, right? Check it out. We don't want to put anything above experimental if we are not certain anymore that it's enough QA'd or stable, so that everyone has the required maintainability, right? So for their applications and real world cases to work without issues. I think another thing that we're probably going to do is we'll very likely have a pre-release version as default as well, so that experimenters can also plug that on and play with the most recent features always, right? So we will likely have these two different ways for you to play with.
So yeah, awesome. Couple more questions actually, Rodrigo, that came in. I think we can just answer those before we go on to
Uh-huh.
DataStax uh, Langflow side. So one question is it more simple to create? Well, actually, I think we kind of went through that, the multi-agent side. Are there any sample projects demonstrating the new features in general? And maybe I could probably chime in over there. So of course, the video series that we have right now in office hours can help you kind of go through the new features, but also we're working on getting some short tutorial videos out. So you'll probably see a lot of those where different features and how to use those are going to be available to the community. Not just that, there's also the store section, right? So you'll see a few things over there, how these new features are available. Yeah, other than that, any other resource, Rodrigo, that you would recommend?
Yeah, so I think we have a couple of previous webinars. We have a couple of YouTube videos. Uh, get onto our Medium blog. There are a couple articles with use cases. Although in overall, Langflow 1.0 just came out, right? So the amount of content for 1.0 is still low in relation to the previous amount of content. So give it a couple weeks, right? Or next week, the other week, you're gonna see so many flows coming out because we sort of nailed down into the types of inputs and outputs that we wanted to fix on, right? So from this point, it's going to be releasing content and creating useful stuff around around this platform, right? What I like to try to convey is that Langflow is not the store of components, it's the factory, right? It's the manufacturing plant. So we want Langflow to be the component builder, right? And I think we reached that with 1.1.0 with a good amount of success. And from now on, it's the work of putting components out, right? Very fast. So putting components out and flows out and more examples. And let's make that list of examples to get started become, instead of 6 examples, 100, right? So that's where we're aiming right now.
Perfect. And also, it's just amazing to see how community comes up with so many different just creative flows and ways to actually use Langflow, right? We usually tend to give some generic, base level how to get started, but it's always nice to see how communities involve and yeah, come up with so many solutions. So yeah, other question, Rodrigo, is interested in how one can use the API token. So kind of programmatically log in a user with the API token. It seems like, let's say this is the use case where there's a front end and want to auto log in someone using that API token. How can that be done?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question for Gabriel. I'm gonna skip that one. I
All
never used
right,
it.
let's Yeah, and I came across documentation. I never use myself, but that's actually a very good question. So how about we hold this one to perhaps next office hours? We'll try to answer that with Gabriel. Another question about the Firecrawl integration
Yeah,
um, was, yeah, any comments over there on Firecrawl integration?
it's released. So just go on
Awesome.
your sidebar and check it out. Firecrawl API and Firecrawl Scrape API on utilities. You should see.
So Rodrigo, if you don't mind, could you real quick maybe show on the screen and we'll
Okay.
yeah, we'll
And
cover
I think
that.
I'm gonna use my sharing again to show people something too. Look at this. So this is the Firecrawl API,
Uh,
right?
uh, Rodrigo, I think we're seeing the not the
Oh, my
Langflow
bad.
screen.
My bad. Let me try again. Sorry about that.
All
Resharing
good.
screen. Share your screen. I was sharing just a window. Sorry about that. And
Yeah,
okay,
there we
can you
go.
see it now? All
Yes.
right. Again, everything that's new on experimental, right? Once we QA it enough, we're gonna set it up. That's how it's probably going to work. And then I have something, Misbah, that maybe we wanna cover, especially to say to illustrate like as asked, some of the new features, right? And this is a completely like different component than you've ever seen in Langflow. I don't know if you can notice here, but this is a group component. Okay, I called it an AI router, and it has on the description right now. For those who don't know this, it accepts Markdown, right? So you can create a little bit of a documentation over there to explain to people what your flow or component is doing, right? And this guy over here is basically try to follow up with me here. It's a router, right? Taking a condition, and given the role of this condition over here, plus a couple of examples for the true case and the false case, it's going to send the message input either to the true route or to the false route. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically branching, right? Here I'm saying check if the user sounds happy, right? True examples. Big news, Langflow 1.0 is out. Woohoo, that movie was awesome. Love you, babe. These are some true examples for happy, right? false examples. Oh, my cat died. No one loves me. Not cool, right? So basically, what it's doing is, if I send a, like, it's a model classifying the input into one of these cases, and it's taking the input and sending in different directions, right? So if I take on the playground here, let me remove my previous messages, and I'm just gonna say, let's see if the OpenAI API key is set up. Maybe not. Probably not. Yeah. Let me set up my API key. Inside of this component, there is the advanced settings, and you can basically set it up. This is a very old component. So, well, let me try that again. And I'm gonna do my cat died. You're sad, right? And notice there are two memory sessions being created just because I used a different one last time. But then, yeah, we're doing an awesome live with Misbah now. And I'm happy. Yeah, but why it's cool? It's not because it's deciding if the user is sad or happy. The cool thing here is that it's deciding where it's going to send to, right? Meaning, depending of a user input, it can route the output to a completely different flow, right? And then you can say, hey, depending on the output, you're going to use this database for RAG, but depending on the other output, it's going to be a different database for RAG, right? And then you can start manipulating conditions together with the power of AI and LLM, contextual building plus agents plus RAG plus everything, right? If that makes sense.
Awesome. That's actually really nice, especially the markdown. I love it. I mean, of course, also the router, it's going to see probably a lot of use from the community. There was a question from Francisco about sharing the GPT for custom components. So perhaps maybe, once we update all of that with the latest release and the documentation, we can certainly share with the community. Other than that, maybe real quick, we can talk about the DataStax, Langflow, and then take a few questions. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so this is really exciting. Within 20 seconds or so, you can actually go from the just no access to completely in Langflow and experimenting, right? So if you want to follow along, just search DataStax Astra or DataStax Langflow, and you'll see something as a result from DataStax. Click on that link; it will take you to a page which looks like this, where you can sign up, and it's free. So you can sign up using GitHub or Google or make an account. Once you do that, probably 20 seconds or so, once you give access, you land into a page like this. So real quick way of actually getting access to Langflow. And this is, again, within your account. So anything yet that you create over here, new project flows, it's going to be within your account. So this is amazing. Now, in here, you can, of course, start a new project, take from the templates. You can basically do perhaps most of the things that you can do in your self-hosted environments. There are a couple of things that you might notice that are a little different here, especially with the version as well as with the API access that might be a bit different, but this is probably the fastest, easiest way to get started. I started with the template, and then this is very basic. We've covered this example before. Yeah, again, want to really emphasize, if you are helping someone learn or you want to forward this info about Langflow, how someone can build cool LLM apps, highly recommend it to get started with this. You can create tons of flows, tons of whatever you want to build in here, and DataStax provided this for the community for free. So yeah, do check it out. I'll probably maybe cover more details in one of the future ones, but just wanted to kind of quickly give an overview. So yeah, anything that you want to
So
comment over here, Rodrigo?
Yeah, so Misbah, we just received a question saying, can we share flows with specific users or groups? That's Brandon Gales. I don't know how to speak that. So yes, you can. You can share both flows and components in Langflow. There are multiple ways to do that. One is if you click on the component options, you are able to see there's a download button. You can just literally download that. Every flow can be represented as a JSON file, so you send it over to other people. Another way to share them is to share them through the Langflow store. Okay, Langflow store is a place where we keep a lot of components and flows for people to play with. It's super beta. It's just for people to try. Nothing really serious over there just yet, but it's already a place where you can throw your components and flows over there. And everything that you're building on, and I'm gonna just share again, Ms. If that's okay, just to show this
Sure.
because I think this is probably one of the most powerful features in Langflow, maybe powerful hidden features in Langflow, is that if you if you're working with flows and like really complex stuff, things start to get very messy. And this AI router, for example, I just showed, is actually a combination of a lot of components together. So let me open it up and show you the real thing behind the scenes. And I'm gonna ungroup it. Okay. So I ungrouped it, and this is what is actually going on, right? There are a couple lists sending information to parse data, parsing the data, sending to prompt sending to an OpenAI model. There's a conditional router over here. So a lot of stuff going on, right? And what I'm doing is I took all of these, I grouped them, and once you group them, you can decide what stays in the main screen over here in the main component, or what goes to advanced. And you can set up a name, a description, and so on. Once you do that, you can save your component. So let's say we're gonna call this component Misbah's component, right? And and now and well, let's add a emoji to that. Okay, so it's going to be the fire one. Cool. Now let me store this out. And by the way, just use Markdown over here, right? Bullets, and there you go. And now let me store it, save it, right, in my saved component. So I'm gonna save that guy. Now, anytime I want to reuse that entire thing I maybe spent 2 hours working on, I just drop it from my sidebar and use that. And the best thing of all is that you can group groups as well, right? So if this guy connects to that guy, supposedly you can create a group from both, and then you can go forever. Oh, but this is going to become very noisy. You just come to advanced and start hiding some of those fields, right, that you don't need the user to see. So forget everything. Let's make it very simple, and maybe it's going to become useful for next time use, right? All right, a lot of outputs over here. Let me hide some of them. Don't need these, don't need these. Maybe these two are the only ones I need. Give it a name. Now I have a group of groups, and I'm gonna start this again. Right, save. So I have it on my sidebar. If I want to share it with my friends, I can do this in multiple ways. One of them is going to be download here. I can also share my entire flow from over here, right? In this case, I can't do this because I'm working on the dev version, but on the 1.0 version you're going to be using, you're going to have this button available, and maybe there are some restrictions to your flow for you to share it, that's it. So create, group, assemble again, group again, share, and make the community reuse whatever you created, so that we can build on top of these modular building blocks, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah. And there was a question about grouping, so that's answered. Are there things that don't group? So I think we covered that. So just the chat input and output. So those are the ones that cannot group, but everything else in between groups together, right? Um,
Exactly.
I think that we covered most of it. One last thing is if there are multiple lines from one connector that connects to the next block, what's the usual execution order for something like that?
I don't know if I understood the question, Miss, but my bad.
So So let's say if there are multiple connectors going out from one block to the
Mhm.
other, maybe two blocks, right?
Yeah.
Is there some sort of execution order that happens? Like this one happens first, or the data sent to the first one?
They are gonna run in parallel, right? But
Mhm.
always from the left to the right. So you're gonna
Okay,
see the first component sending information to the other to the second two components, and then these two may be branched into more components, and they are gonna always be from the left to the right, right? And there are multiple modes of execution. One component can send information to the front, or if you call the one in the front, it's gonna pull information from the back. Right? So it depends from where the information was asked to come.
perfect. Awesome. I think, yeah, we covered a lot of things. There are also more questions coming in. We always recommend and suggest for the community to post if you have questions in the Discord server. We will do our best to answer as many as we can in the office hours over here. It's amazing to see, folks joining in, and the interactive sessions over here. This is awesome. We'll do a multiple formats, so maybe audio only, and then something like this in the upcoming weeks. So yeah, it's great to have everyone. Thanks a lot, Rodrigo, for going in details with the features, and yeah, we'll probably be covering some of those more. So we'd love to have you more on these.
Thank you, Misbah, and thank you everyone who joined. We're really happy to see you here. Bye bye.
All right, y'all take care. Bye.